Poor mother sells her gold ring to pay for her daughter's treatment, but the billionaire discovers the truth and does something incredible. Every second was a reminder. Every minute, a silent accusation. That watch wasn't just an expensive object, it was a symbol of the day everything changed, of the day Adam became rich. He had bought it years ago, on the day he signed the contract that made him a millionaire. He remembered that afternoon perfectly. The conference room filled with lawyers in suits, papers scattered across the mahogany table, the gold pen feeling heavy in his hand. He was only 28, but he already knew what he wanted: success, power, financial security that no one could take from him. He signed the contract, shook hands, smiled for the cameras, and on the way home, he walked into a high-end jewelry store and bought that watch. The most expensive model in the display, Swiss, automatic, see, with a genuine leather strap. It cost the equivalent of an affordable car. But Adam didn't care. At that moment, the money seemed endless. He put the watch on his wrist and felt invincible. He had finally arrived where he always wanted to be. He was finally someone. But the years passed, and that same watch, which was supposed to represent victory, became something else. Ever since, the rhythmic ticking sound was the soundtrack to his loneliness. Adam woke up to that sound. He worked hearing that sound. He fell asleep when he could sleep, with that sound hammering in the silence. It was as if the watch wasn't counting the seconds, but everything he had lost along the way. The house was large, cold and silent, too large for one man alone. 3 floors, 7 empty bedrooms. A modern kitchen he never used because he always ordered takeout. Living rooms where no one talked. A backyard pool that had never been used. Everything was impeccable. The white walls, the gleaming marble floors, the designer furniture that cost fortunes. But the house had no soul. It was as beautiful as a magazine photo, and just as empty. The cold didn't come from the air conditioning. It came from absence, of human warmth, of laughter, of life. And the silence was deafening. There was no music, no voices, no sound of running footsteps, of slamming doors, of someone calling his name. Only the ticking of the watch, always the ticking. There were expensive paintings hanging on the walls. Adam didn't even remember how much he had paid for them. Abstract, modern, incomprehensible, the kind of art rich people buy because other rich people say it's important. They came with certificates, expensive frames, and stories about famous artists. But Adam felt nothing looking at them. They were just colors on canvases, investments, decoration. But not a single photograph. Not one photograph on the walls, no smiling faces, no framed memories, no happy moments frozen in time. Adam had taken them all down years ago, on a particularly difficult afternoon. He put everything in a cardboard box and threw it in the attic. He never went up there again. Looking at those photos hurt too much. Seeing her face, her smile, her tired eyes, still full of love. It was like opening a wound that had never properly healed. Success surrounded him, but his heart remained trapped in a distant time, the time when he still had his mother. She got sick when Adam was 12. Cancer. The word everyone whispered, but no one wanted to say out loud. He still remembered every detail, the smell of the hospital, the cold fluorescent lights, the constant beeping of machines. He remembered sitting by her bed, holding that thin, frail hand. He remembered making promises, a child's promises, impossible and sincere. When I grow up, I'm going to be rich, Mom. I'll pay for the best doctors. I'll take you to the best hospitals. You're going to get better, I promise. But she didn't. She died 6 months later, and Adam grew up carrying that guilt. He grew up thinking that if he had money, if he were powerful, if he were important, he could protect the ones he loved. He could prevent the pain. So he spent his whole life chasing it. He built a company, closed deals, worked day and night. He accumulated money, properties, power. And he only realized too late that he had forgotten to build a real life. Now he had everything, and he had nothing. That morning, Adam woke up as he always did, alone, in the middle of that huge, empty house. He made coffee that had no taste, read emails that didn't matter, looked out the window and saw the city waking up below. people going to work, children going to school, life happening. And there he was on top of the world, completely disconnected from it all. That's when he remembered the watch. He had sent it for repair last week. The second hand had gotten stuck. Ironic. An expensive Swiss watch that simply stopped working. Like his own life. Adam decided to pick up the watch he had sent for repair. Normally, he would have sent someone to do it. He had a driver, a secretary, assistants. People paid to handle his small tasks, but that morning, without quite knowing why, he wanted to go himself. He put on a grey suit, grabbed his car keys, left the silent house, a simple task, or so he thought. He didn't know, as he drove through the city streets, that this day would change everything, that this simple task would lead him to an encounter that would turn his life upside down. He didn't know that the ticking of the watch was about to get a new companion, the sound of a heart that had long since stopped beating. The jewelry store was small, lit by warm yellow light and impeccable display cases. Adam pushed the glass door and heard a small bell chime above his head. The place had an old, welcoming feel. It smelled of polished wood and metal. It was the kind of establishment that had been there for decades, resisting modern malls and designer boutiques. The display cases showed engagement rings, delicate necklaces, classic watches. Everything was arranged with care, each piece with its own small, handwritten tag. The yellow light gave the room an almost nostalgic tone. There was only one clerk, a thin man in his 50s, with glasses, wearing a vest over a white shirt. He was busy with someone. While waiting for the clerk, Adam looked around. Normally, when he would have been impatient, checked his phone, tapped his fingers on the counter, but that morning, he was strangely calm. He let his eyes wander over the displays without really seeing anything. That's when he noticed a woman at the counter. She had her back to him, bent over the glass, speaking to the clerk in a low voice. She wore faded jeans and a simple long-sleeved shirt. Her brown hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, as if it had been done in a hurry. She was holding something between her fingers, an old ring. Even from a distance, Adam could see it was beautiful. Worked gold with a small ruby in the center, the kind of jewelry that carries history. The kind passed down through generations. Her face was tense and distressed. Adam didn't want to eavesdrop. He really didn't. But the shop was too small and he was too close. And there was something about the woman's posture, her slumped shoulders, her trembling hands, that caught his attention. "Please," she said to the clerk, her voice filled with urgency. "You have to give me a fair price. I really need this money." The man behind the counter took the ring and examined it with a small magnifying glass. He turned it over and over, placed it on a scale. He looked at it with the expression of someone who had seen 1,000 identical pieces of jewelry and was no longer impressed by any of them. "It's real gold," the woman continued anxiously, leaning over the counter. 18-karat gold. The ruby is real. It was appraised 3 years ago for $1,200. I have the certificate right here." She fumbled in her purse with trembling hands and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. She held it out to the clerk as if it were irrefutable proof. The man gave it a quick glance and handed the paper back without interest. "That was 3 years ago," he said coldly. "The market has changed." "But it's a family heirloom," she insisted, her voice rising a notch. "It belonged to my grandmother. She brought it from Europe when she was young. It's over 70 years old. That has to be worth something." "It's worth something," the clerk replied, bored. $200. The woman turned pale. 200. "No, that can't be right. You don't understand. I need at least 5,000. My daughter. I need to sell it," she said, her voice breaking. "My daughter is in the hospital. She's going to have surgery, and I have nothing else." The words came out in a desperate rush. Adam, still on the other side of the store, felt each one like a punch to the gut. "Time, please," she continued, tears starting to well up in her eyes. "This ring is the most valuable thing I own. It's the only thing I have left from my grandmother. She gave it to me at my wedding, said I should keep it forever, that I should pass it on to my daughter one day." Her voice failed. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, embarrassed to be crying in front of a stranger. "But my daughter is sick," she went on, now almost in a whisper. She's 5 years old. 5. And she needs this surgery. Or I don't know what will happen. The doctor said it can't wait, so I have no choice. I have to sell it. This ring is all I have to trade for her life. The man behind the counter offered a low price. $200, he repeated, emotionless. That's what I can pay. Take it or leave it. There was no compassion there. No humanity. It was just business, just numbers. But that's only 200, she said, desperate. The surgery costs 5,000. How will I get the rest? What do I do? Not my problem, the clerk replied, pushing the ring back toward her. If you don't want to sell, that's fine, but that's my offer. The woman picked up the ring with trembling fingers. She looked at it. At that small circle of gold that carried so many memories. Wedding. Grandmother. Past. Love. And now she had to choose between the past and the future, between the memory of her grandmother and the life of her daughter. It wasn't a choice. It never had been. Please, she tried one more time, her voice failing. Do you have children? Imagine if it was your child in the hospital. Wouldn't you do anything? The man sighed, annoyed. Ma'am, I've already told you my price. I'm not changing it. If you want to sell, sell. If not, please clear the counter. I have other customers. Adam watched, not knowing why his chest felt so heavy. There was something in the woman's eyes, a mix of dignity and desperation, that disarmed him. She wasn't just sad. She was broken, but she still held her head high. Still tried to negotiate, still fought. He knew that fight. He had seen it on his own mother's face years ago, when she sold her jewelry to pay for medicine, when she pretended everything was fine while her world was falling apart. The woman looked at the ring one more time, took a deep breath, closed her eyes as if saying a silent prayer. All right, she said, her voice barely audible. I'll take the 200. I need anything, even 200 helps. As she started to hand the ring to the clerk, Adam moved. He didn't think, he didn't plan. He simply moved. He took 3 quick steps and placed his hand on the counter, blocking her gesture. Please, Adam said, his voice firm. Don't sell it. The woman turned abruptly, startled. Her eyes were wide, still wet with tears. What? The clerk frowned, irritated. Sir, stay out of this. Adam ignored the man. He kept his eyes fixed on the woman. Don't sell the ring, he repeated. She looked at him as if he were crazy. You don't understand, she said, her voice hoarse from holding back sobs. I have no choice. My daughter needs this surgery. She needs it now, and this ring is all I have. It's the only valuable thing I have left. I know, Adam said softly, but there's another way. She shook her head, confused and exhausted. There isn't. There's no other way. I've tried for loans. I've asked for help. I've begged the hospital for more time. Nobody helps. So I have to sell it. I have to do this. Adam looked at the ring, then at her. I understand, he said, and realized it was true. I've been in a place where all that's left is a memory, but some memories need to stay with us. Let me help. She blinked, not understanding. How? You can't just... I can, Adam interrupted. He took his wallet from his pocket, pulled out his credit card, and handed it to the stunned clerk. How much does she need? Adam asked. $5,000, the woman whispered, still in shock. Adam looked at the clerk. Ayert run a transaction for $5,000. Sir, I don't know if... Do it. The man took the card with trembling hands. He ran it through the machine. The transaction was approved in seconds. The woman was frozen in place, the ring still in her hand, tears now streaming freely. I can't accept this, she said, choking on her words. How will I pay you back? I don't have... He paid the amount for the surgery, refusing any receipts. When the clerk tried to give him the receipt, Adam shook his head. I don't need it. He turned to the woman and saw the ring still clutched in her hand. Keep it, he said gently. Your grandmother gave that to you for a reason. Don't let this situation steal that from you too. She looked at him, at the ring, then back at him. But why? Why are you doing this? You don't know me. You don't know if I'm telling the truth. You don't know anything about me. Adam thought of his own mother, of the hospital, of the helplessness of being 12. "I know you're a mother trying to save her daughter," he said, "and that's all I need to know." Before she could thank him, before she could say anything else, Adam took a step back. "Consider it a loan of hope," he said, almost in a whisper, and then he turned to leave. But she grabbed his arm. "Wait," she said, her voice broken. "Please. At least let me know your name. I need to know who did this." Adam looked at her eyes full of gratitude and confusion. "Adam," he said. "Adam Porter." "Hannah," she said, sobbing. "Hannah Brooks. And my daughter's name is Lucy." In the car, the silence was light, almost awkward. Adam drove carefully, his hands firm on the steering wheel. Hannah was in the passenger seat, looking out the window, still holding the ring as if it were a talisman. She squeezed it between her fingers every so often, as if to make sure it was still there. The jewelry store was behind them. The city passed by outside, shops, people, traffic lights, life happening. But inside the car, time seemed suspended. Neither of them knew exactly what to say. Adam hadn't planned any of this. He hadn't planned to help. He hadn't planned to go to the hospital. But when Hannah, still trembling, asked if he could drive her there, he couldn't say no. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was just the desire to see it through to the end. Or maybe deep down, it was something more. The need to know that his gesture had meant something. Hannah finally broke the silence. "I'm sorry for how I reacted," she said softly. "At the jewelry store, I know I was rude at first. It was so unexpected. I didn't know what to think." "You don't need to apologize," Adam replied, keeping his eyes on the road. "I understand." She turned to him. "No, you don't understand," she said, "but it wasn't rude. It was just honest. Nobody does what you did. Nobody just helps like that, without asking any questions, without wanting anything in return." Adam didn't answer. He didn't know what to say. She introduced herself properly now, her voice calmer. "My name is Hannah Brooks," she said. "My grandmother was Irish, so my mum chose that name." Adam nodded. "It's beautiful." "Thank you," she said, with a half smile. "And my daughter's name is Lucy." Her voice changed when she said her daughter's name. It became softer, fuller with love. "Lucy is 5, Hannah continued, looking at her own hands. "She'll be 6 in December. She was born premature, 2 months early. The doctors said she might not survive, but she fought. From the very first day, she fought." Adam listened in silence. "She has a brave heart," Hannah said, and there was pride in her voice now. "Braver than mine, for sure. She never complains, never cries. Even when she's in pain, she smiles, says she doesn't want to see me sad." Hannah wiped away a tear that escaped. "Sorry," she said, laughing without humor. "I guess I'm talking too much." "No," Adam said quickly. "You're not. Go on." There was something genuine in the way he said it. Hannah noticed. "Oh, the problem with her heart," Hannah began, her voice trembling. "The doctors found it 6 months ago. They said she would need surgery, but that we could wait a little. But last week she fainted at school, just collapsed in the middle of recess." Hannah closed her eyes as if reliving it was too painful. "But when we got to the hospital, the doctor said we can't wait anymore, that it has to be now, this week, or her heart might. She couldn't finish the sentence. Adam gripped the steering wheel tighter. He knew exactly what she couldn't say. "The health insurance didn't cover it," Hannah continued. "They said it was an elective procedure, which is ridiculous. How is it elective if she could die? I tried to fight it, to argue, but it was no use. They said I needed to pay $5,000 up front, or they wouldn't do the surgery." She shook her head in disbelief. $5,000, as if it's that simple, as if everyone has that just lying around. Adam turned a corner. The hospital was now visible at the end of the street. "Do you have family?" he asked. "Anyone who could help?" Hannah gave a bitter laugh. "My mother died 3 years ago. Cancer. My father, well, he was never really around. Lives in another state now, has a new family, new kids. We don't talk much." She looked out the window again. "And Lucy's father died when she was 6 months old. Car accident. So it's just me and her, it always has been. Adam swallowed hard. He didn't know what to say. I'm sorry, felt too small for all of that. That's why the ring was all I had, Hannah said quietly. It was the only thing of value. The only thing I could trade for money. She looked at the ring in her hand. When the man at the jewelry store offered $200, I wanted to scream. I wanted to curse him out. But what good would that do? In the end, 200 was better than nothing. So I was going to accept it. I was going to sell it. And then I was going to figure out a way to get the rest. I don't know how, but I would have. Adam parked in front of the hospital. You don't have to figure it out anymore, he said, turning off the engine. Hannah looked at him, her eyes full of emotion. When they arrived, Hannah wanted to thank him again. They got out of the car and stood there on the sidewalk. The hospital was large, grey, imposing. People entered and exited through the revolving doors. Ambulances were parked at the emergency entrance. Life and death happening at the same time. I don't know how to thank you, Hannah began, turning to him. You saved my daughter, literally. I don't have the words to... But Adam refused. You don't have to thank me, he said gently. Really? But I do, she insisted. What you did was... It was the right thing to do, Adam interrupted. That's all. Hannah was silent for a moment, studying his face, trying to understand who this strange man was who had appeared out of nowhere and changed everything. Just let me see if she's okay, Adam asked, surprised by his own words. He hadn't planned to ask, but it came out naturally. He needed to see. He needed to know that it had been worth it. Hannah smiled, the first genuine smile since they had met. Of course, she said. Of course you can. They went inside together. The hospital had that characteristic smell, disinfectant, alcohol, something vaguely sweet. The lights were very white. The floors very clean, everything very impersonal. Hannah led him through the corridors, up an elevator to the third floor, the pediatric wing. The walls here were more colorful. They had drawings of animals, rainbows, clouds, an attempt to make the place seem less scary for children. Hannah stopped in front of a door. Room 304. Oh, she's probably sleeping, Hannah whispered. She sleeps a lot because of the medication. She pushed the door open slowly. In the children's room, little Lucy was lying down, hugging a teddy bear. The bed was small, with rails on the sides. The sheets were white with little blue star patterns. There was a monitor beside it, showing numbers Adam didn't understand. An IV dripped slowly, and there in the middle of it all was Lucy. She was small, too small to be in a hospital, too small to be sick. Her blonde hair, not brown but light and blonde, covered the pillow like a golden halo. She wasn't sleeping. Her curious eyes, a surprising light blue, searched for the visitor's face. Lucy looked first at her mother, then at the strange man in the suit beside her. She tilted her head, curious. "Mommy," she said, her voice soft but tired. "Is that the new doctor?" The question came with a small but genuine smile, a tired smile from someone who was far too used to doctors. Hannah entered the room, approaching the bed. Adam stayed at the door, unsure if he should come in. "Dunno, sweetie," Hannah answered, laughing through tears. "He's a friend." Lucy looked at Adam again, sizing him up. "A friend," she repeated, skeptical. "But I don't know him." "You'll get to know him now," Hannah said, gesturing for Adam to come closer. He entered slowly. His footsteps echoed in the quiet room. He stopped at the foot of the bed, not knowing what to do with his hands. Lucy watched him with those clear, intelligent eyes. Adam knelt beside the bed, getting down to her level. "Hi, Lucy," he said softly. "My name is Adam." "Hi," she replied, hugging her teddy bear. "This is Mr. Cuddles." She held up the teddy bear for him to see. It was old, faded, with one eye slightly crooked. "A pleasure, Mr. Cuddles," Adam said seriously. Lucy giggled, a short but real laugh. "Can I be your friend too, Lucy?" Adam asked. She thought for a moment, seriously, as if it were an important decision. "You can, if you promise me one thing." "What's that?" Lucy looked him in the eyes, determined. "Just that you'll come back tomorrow." Adam felt something tighten in his chest. He smiled. "I promise." Lucy smiled back, satisfied. "Then, you can be my friend." The little girl's gaze, pure, trusting, fearless, broke through the defenses he had built up for years. At that moment, kneeling beside that hospital bed, looking at that small, brave child, Adam felt something change inside him. Something that was broken began to mend. Something that was dead began to breathe again. In the following days, Adam returned. The day after his first visit, he showed up at the hospital at 3 in the afternoon. He brought a small bag with shiny red apples. Lucy loved them, saying they were the prettiest apples she had ever seen. She ate a whole one slowly, savoring each bite as if it were the most delicious thing in the world. The next day, he came back with a set of colored pencils, 12 vibrant colors in a tin case, and a drawing pad with a hard blue cover. Lucy got excited in a way Hannah hadn't seen in weeks. She spent the whole afternoon drawing giant flowers, houses with smoking chimneys, Mr. Cuddles with a king's crown. On the third day, he brought nothing but himself. He arrived empty-handed, just with a shy smile. And he realized it was enough. Lucy was just as happy to see him as on the other days. On the 4th day, he brought seedless grapes. On the 5th, a children's storybook with colorful illustrations. On the 6th, just a yellow flower he bought from a street vendor. Always with something simple, fruit, colored pencils, or just his time. Adam never arrived with expensive or extravagant gifts. No tablets, electronic toys, or giant stuffed animals that took up half the room. Just small, thoughtful things, chosen with care along the way. He would stop at a fruit stand 3 blocks from the hospital. He got to know the owner, an old Italian man who always recommended what was freshest. Juicy pears, seedless grapes, red strawberries when they were in season. Sweet cherries. Lucy ate slowly with pleasure and always saved something for her mother. "Mommy likes strawberries," she would say, setting aside the biggest ones, or "This pear is for Mommy." Hannah always accepted, touched by her daughter's gesture. Hannah was surprised with each visit. At first, she thought Adam would come once or twice out of politeness. Maybe out of guilt, maybe out of pity. But he kept showing up every single day, always in the mid-afternoon, when the sun streamed through the window of room 304 and made everything warm and golden. He would sit in the chair next to the bed. Sometimes he talked. Sometimes he just sat there in a comfortable silence, reading the newspaper while Lucy drew or did puzzles. His presence was calm, without pressure, without asking for anything in return. Lucy laughed easily, even between tests. She had a crystal-clear, bubbling laugh that seemed impossible for someone so small and so sick. A laugh that filled the room and spilled into the hallway, making nurses smile as they passed. She laughed when Adam tried to draw and made a dog that looked more like a duck in a hat. She laughed when he imitated funny voices, a rusty robot, a horse pirate, a witch with a cold. She laughed even on the hard days, when the nurses came to draw more blood or run more uncomfortable tests. "You tickle without touching," she told him once, trying to explain. Adam didn't quite understand, but he smiled, curious. "Tickle without touching? What do you mean?" "Yeah," Lucy said, swinging her little legs under the blanket. "You come in and the room feels lighter, like when Mommy opens the window at home and fresh air comes in, you know, that air that makes you breathe better." Adam was speechless. He felt something tighten in his chest. No one had ever said anything like that to him. No one had ever described his presence as something good, as something that brought relief. "Thank you, Lucy," he said softly. "I think that's the most beautiful compliment I've ever received." Lucy smiled, satisfied, and went back to her coloring. She made him laugh too, a shy laugh, long forgotten. At first, they were just polite smiles. Small, restrained. Adam wasn't used to laughing. He had forgotten what it was like. But slowly, Lucy started pulling genuine laughter out of him. Deep laughs. The kind that makes your stomach hurt and your eyes water. She had a unique way of seeing the world. She would say absurd things with the utmost seriousness, as if they were universal truths. "If I were a bird, I'd be a chicken," she declared one day, out of the blue in the middle of a drawing. Adam looked at her, confused and amused. Why? Because chickens don't fly very high, but they lay eggs, Lucy explained, very seriously. And eggs turn into cake. And everyone likes cake, so I'd be useful. The logic was flawless. Adam laughed so hard he had to wipe his eyes. Hannah woke up from her nap in the chair, startled, thinking something had happened, or when Lucy found out Adam owned a construction company. "So you build houses?" she asked, incredibly impressed. "That's right. Buildings, too." Lucy's eyes widened. "Dad, did you build my house?" "No, I don't think so," Adam said, laughing. "What's the address?" Lucy frowned, thinking, "Street, something. It has a number and a tree in the front." "Very specific," Adam joked. "You could build us a new house then," Lucy suggested excitedly. "A really big one. With 3 bedrooms. 3. One for me, one for Mommy, and one just for Mr. Cuddles." Adam pretended to consider it seriously. "A whole room for Mr. Cuddles. Does he need that much space?" "Of course," Lucy said, as if it were obvious. "He's a very important bear. He needs a big bed, a wardrobe, and a window with a garden view." Adam promised that when she got out of the hospital, he would draw up a complete blueprint for a house just for Mr. Cuddles, complete with a private bathroom. Lucy clapped her hands and made Adam promise again, holding out her pinky finger to seal the deal. The afternoons became a routine, a good routine. The first truly good routine Adam had had in years. One afternoon, while Hannah was sleeping in a chair, Lucy asked a different kind of question. She was coloring a picture, a huge yellow sun with a smiling face and sunglasses. Adam was reading a book beside her, something he had picked up from the small hospital library. The room was peacefully quiet, just the sound of the pencil scratching on paper and the soft beep of the heart monitor. Lucy stopped coloring. She put the pencil down. She looked at Adam with those clear eyes, blue as the sky, but serious now. "Uncle Adam?" she called out, softly so as not to wake her mother. He closed the book, marking his page with his finger. "Yes. Why do you come here so much?" The question caught Adam completely off guard. He blinked, not sure how to answer. "Because I like talking to you," he said, honestly. Lucy tilted her head to the side, studying him carefully. Her blonde hair fell over her shoulder. "But don't you have work? Mommy said you're important, that you have a company, that you have meetings and a lot of people who work for you." "I do," Adam admitted. "I have all of that." "Then why aren't you there?" Adam thought about the answer. He really thought, "Because nothing there is more important than being here." Lucy seemed to accept the answer, but she didn't look away. She continued to study his face, as if she were reading something written there. "You look sad sometimes," she said, very softly. Almost a whisper. Adam felt a painful squeeze in his chest, as if someone had gripped his heart tightly. No one had ever said that to him. No one had noticed, or maybe they had noticed and simply didn't care enough to comment. People don't ask how you are for real. They just ask out of politeness, expecting an automatic, "I'm fine." But this 5-year-old girl saw right through him. She saw the sadness he carried like a heavy coat, every day, for years. He was silent for a moment. He thought about lying, about saying everything was fine, that it was just fatigue, that it was just work weighing on him. But he looked at Lucy, at those honest, non-judgmental eyes, and he couldn't. "I lost someone I loved very much, a long time ago," he said, his voice low and hoarse. Lucy dropped her pencil. All her attention was on him now, focused, present. "Who?" she asked simply. "My mother." Lucy processed the information. Then she asked, when with the gentleness only children can have, "Did she go to heaven?" "She did," Adam replied, grateful for the kind way she put it. "Your daughter?" Lucy asked, confused. Adam shook his head. "No, Lucy, I don't have any children. It was my mother." Lucy frowned, trying to understand. "But you're already big. You're a grown-up. How did you lose your mum?" Adam smiled, but it was a sad, heavy smile. "She died when I was still a kid. I was 12. He looked at his own hands, large and strong, resting on his knees. "I was little and she got sick," he continued, his voice cracking a bit. "Very sick. Cancer. She needed expensive treatments, imported medicines, specialist doctors, and we didn't have the money for it." Adam swallowed hard. The memories came in waves, the hospital smell, the cold lights, his mother's thin hand in his. "I couldn't help. I was just a kid. There was no way for me to earn money. There was nothing I could do but sit by her side and watch her." "Go!" The words came out with an old pain buried for decades. He had never talked about this, not like this, not with this raw honesty. "I promised her that when I grew up, I would be rich," Adam continued, his voice breaking. "I promised I would pay for everything, that I would save her, but she didn't wait for me to grow up." The silence that followed was thick. Lucy was very still, processing everything she had heard. Then, slowly, she reached out her small hand and took his large one. Her hand was warm, small, fragile, but the gesture had enormous weight. "So you're helping my mommy because of her?" Lucy asked, her eyes shining with understanding. "Because of your mom?" The question hit him with a sweetness. It hit him like an unexpected wave, so simple, so direct, so absolutely true. Adam had never thought of it that way. He had never put it into words, but Lucy, with that strange wisdom children sometimes have, had understood everything. She had seen what no one else had seen. He was helping Hannah and Lucy because he couldn't help his own mother. He was trying to fix the past through the present. He was trying to save someone because he hadn't been able to save the one he loved most. "I think so, Lucy," he said, his voice completely choked up now. "I think so." A tear escaped. He didn't try to hide it. He let it fall. Lucy squeezed his hand tighter. Then she leaned forward and hugged his arm, resting her little blonde head on his shoulder. "Your mum would be happy," she said with absolute conviction. "She would be very proud of you." Adam closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. Something that had been trapped for so long was letting go. An old pain was beginning to heal. "Fjord, thank you for helping us," Lucy whispered against his arm. "Thank you for being our friend." Adam couldn't answer. He just nodded and let the little girl hug him, while Hannah slept and the afternoon sun painted everything golden. They stayed like that for a few minutes, in silence, just holding each other. Hannah began to realize how much of a difference Adam's presence made. She saw her daughter excited, in a way she hadn't seen in months. She saw Lucy looking forward to the afternoons, always asking, "Is it 3 o'clock yet, Mommy? Is Uncle Adam coming?" And he always came. He never failed. Hannah also saw the small gestures, almost imperceptible, but that meant everything. He had simple gestures. He would adjust the blanket when Lucy moved in her sleep and became uncovered. He bought fresh flowers, simple daisies, cheerful sunflowers, to replace the ones wilting in the small vase on the windowsill. He told stories that made Lucy laugh so hard the nurses would stop in the hallway to listen. He never asked for recognition, never expected gratitude, never demanded anything. He just did it. One day, Hannah caught him cleaning Lucy's bedside table. He was using paper towels and hand sanitizer from the wall dispenser. He arranged the colored pencils by color, creating a perfect rainbow. He folded the extra blanket that was thrown on the chair. He straightened Lucy's drawings, stacking them carefully. "You don't have to do that," Hannah said softly, touched. Adam turned, a bit embarrassed at being caught. "I know, I just can't sit still." Hannah smiled. "Thank you. For everything. Not just for this. For everything." "You don't have to thank me," he said, the automatic response he always gave. "Yes, I do," she insisted firmly. "You have no idea how much your presence helps. Not just the money, which was already more than I could have dreamed of, but you being here, every day, making Lucy smile, making me feel less alone, less scared." Adam shook his head, uncomfortable with the compliment. "I haven't done anything special." "You've done everything," Hannah corrected, her eyes shining. "You've done everything." One afternoon, Lucy wanted to show him something special. She had asked Nurse Carla, her favorite, to bring 2 paper cups from the pantry. She filled both with apple juice left over from the hospital snack. She was serious, concentrated, her tongue sticking out the corner of her mouth as if it were a very important task. "Uncle Adam," she called, more solemn than ever. He came closer, curious. "All set." Lucy held the 2 cups carefully, as if they were crystal glasses. "One for me and one for you," she said, holding out one of the cups. "Now we're real friends." Adam took the cup. He looked at the yellowish artificial liquid, at the cheap paper cup that crumpled just from holding it, at the little girl smiling with immense pride. "Real friends make a toast," Lucy explained, very seriously. "I saw it on TV. When people are real friends, they clink their glasses and drink together." He smiled. A real big, luminous smile that completely transformed his face. "Then let's make a toast," he said, raising his cup. Lucy raised hers too. They clinked the cups lightly, making the paper bend a little and almost spill. "To real friends," Lucy said, beaming. "To real friends," Adam repeated, his voice choked with emotion. They drank the juice together. It was awful, artificial, too sweet, probably full of dye and sugar. But to Adam, it was the most important drink he had ever had in his life. The simple scene was etched in his memory. That night, when he returned to his huge, empty house, Adam couldn't stop thinking about that moment, about the apple juice, the paper cup, Lucy's smile, the sincere way she had said real friends. He had closed million-dollar deals. He had shaken hands with mayors, governors, powerful businessmen. He had toasted with $1,000 bottles of champagne at gala events. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had meant as much as that paper cup of cheap hospital juice. That little girl made him feel what money had never given him, a sense of belonging to something good. For the first time in decades, Adam didn't just feel rich. He didn't just feel successful or powerful. He felt needed. He felt truly important, not because of his company, his contracts, or his bank account, but because a 5-year-old girl with hair as blonde as the sun and eyes as clear as the sky had decided he was her friend. A real friend. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Maybe it was even more than enough. Maybe it was all that really mattered. Adam looked at the Swiss watch on his wrist. The ticking continued, constant and precise as ever. But now the sound no longer bothered him. It no longer sounded like loneliness, like lost time, like a wasted life. It sounded like a promise. Like time that could still be well spent, like a second chance the universe was giving him. He smiled to himself there, in the empty living room of the silent house. And for the first time in a very, very long time, the silence didn't weigh on his shoulders, because he knew that tomorrow he would be back to the hospital, back to Lucy, back to Hannah. He would be going home, not the house with white walls and empty rooms where he lived, but his real home, the one he found in that hospital room, 304. The home made of laughter, paper cups, small hands holding his silly stories and kept promises. That was the home that truly mattered. And Adam, after being lost for so long, had finally found his way back home. During her recovery, Lucy was attached to his hip. The first few days after the surgery were tough. Lucy was drowsy from the medication. She was in pain. She would cry softly when no one was looking, but whenever Adam appeared at the door, her little face would light up. "Uncle Adam," she would call, reaching out her little arms. He would approach slowly, careful not to hurt her. He'd sit in the chair beside the bed and just be there, sometimes in silence, sometimes talking about silly things, birds on the windowsill, funny-shaped clouds, what they would have for dinner. As the days passed, Lucy got better. The color returned to her face. Her smile became more frequent. Her energy started to come back, and she started asking for things. "Uncle Adam read to me," she'd ask, pointing to the children's storybook he had brought the week before. It was a thick book, full of colorful illustrations, stories of brave princesses, kind dragons, magical forests. Lucy loved every page. He read, and he didn't just read. He gave it his all. He changed his voice for each character. He gave the witch a high, screeching voice that grated. The giant got a deep, booming voice that made Lucy giggle. The princess had a soft, delicate voice. The knight had a heroic, strong voice, full of courage. He would be silly, too. He'd make up details that weren't in the book. When the book said the dragon flew high, Adam would add, so high he bumped his head on a cloud and got embarrassed. Lucy would burst out laughing. When the story mentioned a castle, Adam would describe towers that reached the stars and secret slides between floors. Lucy would stare wide-eyed, imagining it all. She laughed so much that nurses would stop to listen. Nurse Carla would pop in with the excuse of checking the IVE, but she'd stand there smiling, while Adam acted out the story. Nurse Marcus would pretend to adjust the curtains just to hear the end of the lost night's adventure. Even Dr. Santos, always serious and hurried, would slow her pace in the hallway when she heard the funny voices coming from room 304. Once, she stopped at the door and stood there for 5 whole minutes, completely forgetting she had other patients waiting. "That man should be in theater," Carla once remarked to Hannah, laughing as she organized the medications. Hannah just smiled. She knew it wasn't theater. It was something much deeper. It was Adam letting himself go completely. Letting his defenses down, being who he really was without fear of looking silly or ridiculous. Lucy asked for the same story over and over. The Princess and the Dragon of the Mountains was her absolute favorite. Adam already knew it by heart, but he always read it as if it were the first time, with the same enthusiasm, the same energy, the same surprise at the plot twists. "Again, Uncle Adam," Lucy would plead, clapping her hands when he finished. "Again, but we've already read it 3 times today." "But I love it, please." And he would read it again, because he couldn't deny her anything. One afternoon, Lucy was particularly lively. She had eaten well for lunch, mashed potatoes and shredded chicken. The doctors had said her recovery was going better than expected. She wanted to really play. "Uncle Adam, be the dragon for real," she demanded excitedly, tossing Mr. Cuddles in the air. "What do you mean, for real? Get up and do it. Walk around the room making dragon noises. Fly, breathe fire." Adam looked around. The room was small. It had medical equipment. Wires hanging, IV stands. Not exactly the ideal place for a dragon performance. But Lucy was looking at him with those blue eyes full of expectation and joy. So he stood up. He took off his suit jacket, tossed it on the chair, loosened his tie even more. He made a fierce face, hunched his back, raised his hands like sharp claws. And he started stomping around the room, making strange noises, something between a roar and a deep growl. "I am the Dragon of the Mountains," he declared in an exaggerated, menacing voice. "And I have come for Princess Lucy." Lucy shrieked with delight, hiding under the blanket, laughing uncontrollably. "No, dragon. Don't get me." Adam pretended to look for her, peering under the bed, inside the closet, behind the curtain, making sniffing dragon noises. "Where is the princess? Where is she hiding? I smell a princess around here." "Not here," Lucy yelled from under the blanket, her voice muffled but full of excitement. Adam approached the bed slowly, building suspense, stomping his feet to make noise. "Could she be in here?" He gently pulled back the blanket. Lucy screamed, laughing loudly, her cheeks flushed from laughing so hard. "You found me." "I got the princess," Adam announced triumphantly, raising his arms. "Now I will take her to my castle in the dark mountains." "Never, the night will save me." "What night? I don't see any night here." Lucy pointed dramatically to Mr. Cuddles, who had fallen on the edge of the bed. "Him! Mr. Cuddles is the bravest knight in the world." Adam picked up the teddy bear, looked at it seriously, turning it from side to side. "You!" "A little teddy bear wants to challenge me." He changed his voice, making it high and squeaky to imitate the bear. "Yes, I am very brave. Release the princess, you evil dragon." The performance continued for another 15 minutes. Adam switched between the fierce dragon and the brave teddy bear knight. Lucy participated, giving suggestions, changing the story midway, inventing wild plot twists. "Now the dragon slips on a banana peel," she would shout, and Adam would pretend to slip, nearly falling for real, making all sorts of faces. Her laughter echoed down the hall. It was loud, crystal clear, contagious, and full of life. 3 nurses appeared at the door, curious. They stood there watching the performance, smiling like children. Hannah arrived at that exact moment. She had gone to the cafeteria for a coffee. She came back to find that scene. Adam in the middle of the room, his shirt all wrinkled, holding Mr. Cuddles like a sword, making funny voices, while Lucy laughed in her bed, her cheeks pink with pure joy. One time, Hannah watched from a distance. She stood at the door, holding the hot coffee in her hands. She didn't go in. She didn't want to interrupt the moment. She just watched in silence. Adam was sitting in the chair reading again. He had taken off his suit jacket, something he never did before. He was just in his dress shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His hair was a little messy from playing the dragon. His tie was completely loose, hanging crookedly around his neck. He read calmly, pausing dramatically at just the right moments. Lucy was propped up on white pillows, hugging Mr. Cuddles, her blue eyes glued to him, drinking in every word as if it were magic. Every now and then, Adam would stop and ask carefully, "Do you want me to keep going, or are you tired? We can stop." "Keep going," Lucy would always answer excitedly. "It's not over yet." There was something about the scene that touched Hannah deeply, in the very core of her soul. In that serious man, with his expensive suit and tired soul, there was a genuine affection. She saw it in his eyes. In the gentle way he looked at Lucy, it wasn't the look of someone fulfilling a tedious obligation. It wasn't the look of someone doing charity to feel better about themselves. It was the look of someone who truly cared, for real. When Lucy asked a silly question about the story, Adam would stop everything and answer with his full attention. When she complained of pain or discomfort, he would call the nurse immediately. When she was scared of a new test, he would hold her hand and promise he would stay there the whole time. It wasn't pity. Hannah knew pity. She had seen it in the eyes of so many people. At church, from neighbors, from acquaintances who would show up with food and excuses to leave quickly, that look of pity mixed with discomfort, that desire to help, but also to get out of there quickly, to return to their own comfortable, problem-free lives. Adam had none of that in his eyes. It was love, the kind of love that heals without needing words. The kind of love Hannah had only seen once before in her life, in Lucy's father, in the husband she had lost so many years ago. That patient, generous, unconditional love that asked for nothing in return, the kind of love that simply exists just because. Hannah felt her eyes well up. A warm tear ran down her cheek. How had this man appeared in their lives? Why had he chosen to help them, of all people, on that day in that jewelry store? She had no answers, but she didn't need them anymore either. Sometimes life just gives you gifts without explanation, and the only right thing to do was to accept them with gratitude. Adam looked up at that moment and saw Hannah standing in the doorway. "Hi," he said softly, so as not to startle Lucy. "Hi," Hannah replied, discreetly wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "Want to come in? We're reading about the fairy who was afraid to fly." Hannah shook her head, smiling. "You guys continue. I just came to see how she was doing." Lucy waved excitedly, raising her arm. "Mommy, Uncle Adam does the funniest voices. You have to hear the dragon." "I heard it from the hallway," Hannah said, her smile widening. "My daughter's laugh is impossible to miss." Adam smiled back. There was something different about him too, something lighter, more relaxed, as if a huge weight had finally been lifted from his shoulders. "Oh, she's recovering very well," he said. "Thanks to you," Hannah replied, her voice thick with emotion. "Thanks to the doctors," Adam corrected. "I'm just here, that's all." "Just being here," Hannah said, soft but firm, "is sometimes all someone needs." A few weeks later, Lucy was discharged. The day was a pure celebration. Lucy woke up early, too excited to stay still. The doctors ran the final tests, checked the surgical stitches, measured her blood pressure, listened to her heart. Everything was perfect. Dr. Santos entered the room with a smile, a rare sight for her. "You can go home, young lady," she said, signing the discharge papers. Lucy shouted with joy and hugged Mr. Cuddles so tight she almost ripped his head off. Hannah cried, this time good tears, tears of relief, of gratitude. Adam was there too, leaning against the wall, smiling. Carla and Marcus came to say goodbye. They brought a heart-shaped balloon and a drawing that all the nurses on the shift had signed. Lucy promised she would come back to visit. "Guy, but just to visit, okay," Marcus said, joking. "I don't want to see you as a patient again." "I promise," Lucy said seriously, making a Scout's honor sign. In the car on the way home, Lucy didn't stop talking. She listed everything she was going to do: play in the yard, sleep in her own bed, eat cookies from the hidden tin in the kitchen. Hannah laughed, driving slowly, still processing that they were finally going home. Adam had offered to drive them, but Hannah insisted she wanted to. It was symbolic. It was her taking back control of her own life. But before they said goodbye in the hospital parking lot, Lucy made a request. "Uncle Adam, will you visit us at home?" she asked, holding his hand through the car window. "If your mum lets me," he replied, looking at Hannah. Hannah wanted Adam to visit them. "Of course I'll let you," she said, smiling. "You're part of this story now. It would be weird if you didn't show up anymore." Lucy clapped her hands. "Tomorrow. Come tomorrow." "Lucy, let Uncle Adam rest," Hannah said, laughing. "It's okay," Adam said. "Tomorrow is perfect." And so he did. The next day, at 3 in the afternoon, his usual time, Adam rang Hannah's doorbell. It was a small house in a quiet neighborhood. It had a white wooden fence, a little chipped, a yard with patchy grass, some flowers planted in simple beds, a clothesline with clothes swaying in the wind. The house was simple but full of life. You could feel it before you even went inside. There were toys scattered on the porch. A small bicycle leaned against the wall. Lucy's drawings were taped to the living room window. Hannah opened the door with a smile. "Come in." "Sorry about the mess." "There's no mess at all," Adam said, looking around. And it was true. There were things out of place. Yes, crooked cushions on the sofa, magazines piled on the coffee table, shoes by the door. But it wasn't a mess. It was life happening. It was a house where people actually lived, not just existed. So different from his house. So different from that cold, silent museum. "Uncle Adam!" Lucy shouted, running in from the hallway. She was wearing a yellow dress with flowers. Her blonde hair was down, shining in the light from the window. She looked like a completely different child from the one in the hospital, full of energy, full of color. "Come see my room," she said, pulling his hand. "Lucy, let Uncle Adam breathe," Hannah said, laughing. "It's okay," Adam said. "I want to see it." Lucy's room was small but cozy. The walls were painted light blue. Drawings were taped everywhere. A single bed with star-patterned sheets, shelves with books, toys, stuffed animals. Mr. Cuddles had a place of honor on the bed. "This is where I sleep," Lucy announced, as if it were a palace. "It's beautiful," Adam said, and he was being sincere. After the house tour, Lucy wanted to play in the yard. "Let's play tag," she said, already running. "Lucy, you just got out of the hospital," Hannah reminded her. "You can't run too much." "But I'm all better." "The doctor said so." "She said you were recovered. Not that you could become an Olympic athlete," Hannah said, but she was smiling. Lucy ran around the yard, and Adam tried to keep up with her. He was completely clumsy. He wasn't used to playing like this. He didn't know how to run properly without looking ridiculous. He tripped over his own shadow. Lucy was much faster, even after her surgery. "Got you?" she yelled, touching his back. "No fair, you're too fast," Adam complained, laughing. "Now you're it." Adam chased after her, pretending to be slower than he was. Lucy screamed with joy, dodging him, hiding behind the tree in the yard. Hannah watched from the porch, sitting on the steps with a glass of juice in her hand. "Watch the flowers," Hannah shouted, laughing, when Adam almost stepped on the daisy bed. "Mommy, Uncle Adam runs so slow," Lucy teased, her hands on her hips. Adam stopped, out of breath, resting his hands on his knees. He wasn't used to exercise. He spent his days sitting in meetings, behind desks, inside cars. Hannah looked at him with a gentle smile. "He's done enough running in his life," she said, in a tone that had layers of meaning. Adam understood. She wasn't just talking about physically running. She was talking about his whole life, the constant hustle, the non-stop work, chasing things that never fulfilled him. Adam stopped completely. He stood there in the middle of the yard, still breathless but smiling. "And that's why I've learned that the best thing is knowing where to stop," he said, looking around, at the simple yard, at the small house, at Lucy laughing, at Hannah smiling at him. And he realized he was exactly where he wanted to be. The afternoons became frequent. Adam visited 2-3 times a week. Sometimes he brought something, fruit, a simple toy, flowers for Hannah. Sometimes he just showed up. A quiet afternoon, a few days later, changed everything. Lucy was playing on the porch, building a tower with colorful blocks. Mr. Cuddles supervised beside her. Hannah and Adam were talking in the living room, sitting on the sofa. She had made lemonade. The ceiling fan was spinning. A breeze came in through the open window, carrying the smell of cut grass. The conversation was light at first, about the weather, about Lucy, about how well she was adjusting to being home. Then Hannah asked a question. "You've always owned a construction company, right?" she asked, swirling the lemonade in her glass. "Yes, since I was young," Adam replied. "I started small, worked as a construction worker first, learned the trade, saved money, started my own company in my early 20s. He told her how hard it was at the beginning, how he would wake up at 5 in the morning, how he would do estimates at night, how he fought for every contract. "You must be proud of your journey," Hannah said. "I should be," Adam replied, "but I'm not always." Hannah looked at him, curious, but she didn't press. They were silent for a moment, the sound of Lucy's blocks falling and her laughing to herself. Then Hannah looked at the floor. Her eyes grew distant. She took a deep breath, like someone about to dive into deep water. "My husband died in a work accident 5 years ago," she said, her voice low but steady. Adam froze. He wasn't expecting that. "He was a construction worker," Hannah continued. "He worked on big sites, buildings, bridges. He earned good money. We were saving up to buy a bigger house." She looked out the window, at Lucy's drawings taped to the glass. "One day he didn't come home. The company called and said there had been an accident. A loose beam, inadequate safety equipment. He fell from the 5th floor." Adam's stomach churned. "The company never helped us," Hannah said, and now there was a hardness in her voice. "They said it was his fault, that he wasn't using the equipment properly, that he had been negligent." She shook her head. "But he wasn't. I knew my husband. He was careful, always. It was the company's fault for cutting corners on safety, for rushing the job, for putting pressure on the workers." Hannah looked directly at Adam now. "I tried to sue, I tried to get some compensation, but the company had expensive lawyers. I had nothing. In the end, I got nothing. Not even an apology." Adam sat in silence. He didn't recognize the specific case. His company had hundreds of employees, dozens of sites operating at the same time. He didn't know every name, every story, but he felt the weight of her words like stones on his chest. How many families had suffered like this because of decisions made behind a desk? How many men had died while he signed contracts without reading the safety reports? How many widows had knocked on his company's door only to be sent away by cold lawyers? He had always known deep down that his company wasn't perfect, that it cut costs, that it rushed deadlines, but he had never put a face to the consequences. He had never sat in front of someone who lost everything because of those decisions. "I'm so sorry," Adam said, and the words felt so small, so inadequate. "It's not your fault," Hannah said softly. "You had nothing to do with it." But did he? Adam wasn't so sure anymore. Hannah looked back at the floor. "After he died, everything became difficult. I didn't have a profession. I worked from home, sewing, selling cakes. It was barely enough for rent. When Lucy got sick, I thought I was going to lose her too." Her voice broke slightly. "Then you showed up. Out of nowhere, a stranger who cared when no one else did." She looked at him again, her eyes welling up. "You saved my daughter, Adam. You saved us." Adam couldn't answer. His throat was tight. He didn't feel like a savior. He felt like a fraud, a man who had built a fortune on the backs of people like Hannah's husband. And now he was trying to fix a guilt that would never completely go away. They sat in silence. The lemonade forgotten, Lucy singing some made-up song on the porch. "I'm sorry I brought this up," Hannah said, wiping her eyes. "I didn't mean to bring the mood down." "No," Adam said quickly. "Don't apologize. I needed to hear this." He looked at his own hands. Hands that signed contracts, that had never held a real shovel or trowel. "I didn't know," he said, more to himself than to her. "I never stopped to think about the real people, only the numbers, the deadlines, the profits." Hannah placed her hand on his arm. "You can't change the past," she said gently, "but you can choose who you are now." Adam looked at her. At this woman who had lost so much and could still be kind, could still forgive. "Thank you," he said, his voice hoarse. They sat a little longer. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, but something had changed between them. A truth had been exposed, and they both knew nothing would be the same after that. Adam left as the sun began to set. Lucy gave him a hug and made him promise he'd be back soon. "I promise," he said, holding her pinky. In the car, alone, Adam didn't turn on the radio. He drove in silence. He didn't sleep that night. He lay awake in his huge bed, in the empty house, staring at the ceiling. Hannah's words echoed in his head. "And the company never helped us. They said it was his fault. I got nothing." For the first time, he felt shame not for a specific mistake, but for years of emotional distance, for years of not wanting to know, of not asking, of signing papers without questioning, of trusting managers who cut costs because he demanded more profit. How many families like Hannah's were out there? How many names would he never know? He couldn't change the past. Hannah was right about that, but he could choose who to be from now on. And for the first time, Adam knew exactly what he had to do. Adam requested old reports the next morning. He arrived at the office at 7 a.m. before anyone else. His secretary was startled to see him so early. He never arrived before 9. "I need all the workplace accident reports from the last 10 years, he said directly. His secretary blinked, confused. "Sir?" "Workplace accidents, incidents on construction sites, anything related to injured or—" he swallowed hard, "or deceased employees. Everything you have on file." "That's going to be a lot of paper," she said hesitantly. "I don't care. I want all of it." She nodded and left. Adam was alone in his large, glass-walled office overlooking the city, the same view he looked at every day without really seeing. 2 hours later, there were 3 file boxes on his desk. He read forgotten documents. He started with the oldest box, opened the first folder, accident report from our downtown site, 2015. A man had broken his leg falling from a poorly secured scaffold. Treatment paid by the company. Employee returned to work 3 months later. Second folder. Another accident. Fingers crushed by equipment. A small settlement. Employee fired 6 months later for low productivity. Third folder. Man hit by falling material. Serious injuries. Lawsuit filed by the family. Out-of-court settlement. Amount undisclosed. Case closed. Adam kept reading. Folder after folder. Accident after accident. Names he had never seen. Stories he had never heard. People who had bled, suffered, lost limbs, lost their ability to work. And him? He had never known about any of them. Never asked. Never wanted to know. In every report, there was the same cold language. Clinical. Distant. Accident caused by human error. Employee failed to follow safety protocols. The company holds no legal liability in this matter. Words that protected the company. Words that shifted the blame. Words that turned human tragedies into acceptable statistics. Adam felt sick. He was on the second box when he found it. The name was there, printed in black and white. Robert Brooks. His heart stopped. He opened the folder with trembling hands. He read every word, every line, every detail. Date of accident, 5 years ago. Site, construction of a commercial building on the north side. Victim, Robert Brooks, 32 years old, construction worker. Cause, fall from the 5th floor due to inadequate safety equipment. There were photos. Adam didn't want to look, but he forced himself. The site, the broken scaffold, the spot where Robert fell. He confirmed the accident had happened on one of his sites. There was no denying it, it was one of his sites, one of the biggest that year. He vaguely remembered the project. An office building, 16 floors, a tight deadline, an important client. He kept reading. The internal report said the safety equipment was within the minimum required standards. But there was a note, almost hidden at the end. Site manager chose not to renew safer equipment due to budgetary constraints. Budgetary constraints. Those two words burned in his eyes. He knew exactly what they meant. They meant that someone, probably himself, had demanded cost cuts, had pushed for higher profits, had said, do it with less, and someone had died because of it. There was more. A report from the company lawyer describing the contact with the widow, Hannah Brooks. She had tried to sue, she had asked for help, she had begged for compensation. The company's response was documented, cold and clear, offer minimal settlement. If she refuses, allege employee negligence, do not accept liability. Hannah had refused the minimal settlement, $1,000. She wanted justice. She wanted someone to take the blame. So the company had done exactly what the lawyer recommended. They claimed Robert had been negligent, that he hadn't followed procedures, that it was his fault. They dragged it out until Hannah gave up, until she had no more money for a lawyer, until she had no more strength to fight, and then they filed the case away. Problem solved. No crime. Just coldness. Adam closed the folder. He rested his head in his hands. Technically, no crime had been committed. Everything had been done within the law. The lawyers had made sure of that. There was nothing illegal, but there was something deeply, terribly wrong. No compassion. No one in the company had looked at Hannah and seen a person, a widow, a desperate woman trying to support a young child. They had only seen a legal problem, a financial risk, something to be minimized and filed away. And Adam, where was he when all this happened? Probably in a meeting, or closing another deal, or dining at some expensive restaurant, living his life, completely oblivious to the suffering his company had caused. He picked up the phone and called the chief legal officer. I need to speak with you. Now. The man arrived 15 minutes later, in an immaculate suit, a leather briefcase in hand. Mr. Porter, what can I do for you? Adam threw Robert Brooks's folder onto the desk. Do you remember this case? The lawyer picked up the folder, flipped through it quickly. His eyes showed nothing. Vaguely. It was a few years ago. Workplace accident. The case was resolved. Resolved, Adam repeated, his voice hard. A man died. His widow received nothing. How is that resolved? The lawyer frowned. Mr. Porter, everything was handled according to the law. There was no wrongdoing. The company had no proven legal liability. Legal liability, Adam said bitterly, and human responsibility. Where was that? The lawyer was taken aback. Sir, I just followed protocol. It's my job to protect the company. Protect the company, Adam repeated, and the people. Who protects them? The man didn't answer. He just stood there, uncomfortable. You can go, Adam said tiredly. Just, go. When he was alone again, Adam went back to the folders. He read about every accident, every name, every story reduced to cold paragraphs. Carlos Silva, 28, loss of vision in one eye, compensation, $5,000. Jose Santos, 45, fractured spine, permanent disability, fired due to staffing cuts. Miguel Rocha, 38, hands burned by a chemical, no proper protective gear. Case dismissed. They were people, real people, with families, with dreams, with lives that were destroyed or forever altered. And Adam had been the one ultimately responsible. The owner, the one who signed off on everything. I didn't know, he thought. And it was true. He really didn't know the details. He didn't know these names. He hadn't followed these cases. But what hurt the most was knowing that he had never cared to know. That was the truth that cut the deepest. He could have known. He could have asked. He could have demanded detailed reports. He could have visited the sites. He could have talked to the employees. He could have cared, but he didn't. He was too busy building his empire, too busy accumulating money, too busy being successful. People were just numbers, operating costs, human resources, not even truly human, just resources. Adam looked out the window. Down below, the city was bustling, people going to work, building, living. Some of them probably working on his sites at that very moment. How many of them were safe? How many had proper equipment? How many were at risk because someone had decided that profit was more important than safety? He picked up the phone again. He called the head of operations. "I want a full safety audit of all our construction sites, all of them, immediately." "Sir, that's going to cost—" "I don't care what it costs," Adam interrupted. "I want to know if our employees are safe. If they're not, I want it fixed. Now." Silence on the other end. "Understood, sir." Adam hung up. He looked at the Swiss watch on his wrist. The ticking continued, steady, but now every second felt like an accusation. Every minute that passed, a reminder of how much time he had wasted being blind. He couldn't change the past. He couldn't bring Robert back. He couldn't undo the suffering Hannah had been through, but he could choose who to be from now on. He could choose to open his eyes, to care, to see people as people, not as numbers. He could choose to have a conscience, and maybe, just maybe, that was a start. Adam went home that night with the 3 boxes of reports. He placed them all on the living room table. He was going to read every single one, every name, every story. He was going to know because not knowing was no longer an option. He went to Hannah's house 3 days later. Adam didn't call first. He didn't let her know he was coming. He just got in his car and drove. It was 2 in the afternoon on a sunny Saturday. The kind of beautiful day that seemed to mock the weight he carried inside. He rang the doorbell. He heard light footsteps on the other side. The door opened. Hannah was wearing a floral apron, her hands dusted with flour. She must have been baking. When she saw Adam at the door, her face lit up. She greeted him with a smile. "Adam, what a nice surprise." Come in, come in." But when she got a better look at him, her smile faded a little. Concern appeared in her eyes. "Is everything okay? You look different," Adam finished for her. "I know." And he did. He looked different. Lighter, in a way, but also heavier, in another. As if he had dropped one burden only to pick up another, more important one, more human. His clothes were the same, slacks, a dress shirt, but his demeanor wasn't. There was something in his eyes, something raw, exposed. "Come in," Hannah said, making space. "I was making cookies with Lucy. Want one?" "Actually, I need to talk to you first, alone." Hannah blinked and surprised, but she nodded. "Of course, Lucy's playing in the backyard. Should we go to the porch?" They sat on the porch steps. The sun was warm. Lucy was playing further back, making little houses with rocks and twigs, humming softly to herself. Adam looked at his hands. He took a deep breath. He hadn't rehearsed what to say. He hadn't prepared a speech. He just knew he had to tell the truth. "Hannah, I need to tell you something," he began, his voice low but firm. She turned to him, attentive. Adam told her everything. He explained about the reports he had requested, about the 3 boxes of files he had read, about every accident he discovered, every name he found, and then he got to the hard part. "I found your husband's report," he said, looking directly at her. "Robert Brooks, the accident happened on one of my sites, one of my construction sites." Hannah froze, her eyes widened. "At my company," Adam continued, forcing the words out. "I didn't know at the time. I didn't know it was your husband specifically, but it was my responsibility, my company, my decisions that created the environment where that happened." He explained what he had read, the inadequate equipment, the budgetary constraints, the pressure for profit, the coldness of the legal process that followed. "I saw how my company treated you," he said, his voice cracking. "How the lawyers acted, how everything was done to protect the company, not you. Not your family?" Hannah had tears in her eyes now, but she didn't say a word. She just listened. "I didn't know it was your husband," Adam repeated. "But now I do. And I also know that doesn't change anything. It doesn't bring him back. It doesn't erase what you went through." He looked at Lucy playing in the yard, oblivious to the adults' conversation. "But I want to do what should have been done back then. I want to take care of you both. Not because it redeems me, not because it erases the past, but because it's the right thing to do, because it's the least I can do." A heavy silence fell between them. Lucy sang in the distance. Birds chirped in the trees. The wind rustled the leaves. Hannah finally spoke. She was silent for a long moment, tears in her eyes. The tears ran down slowly, one after another. She didn't try to hide them. She just let them fall. "I was so angry," she finally said, her voice choked with emotion. "When Robert died, so angry at the company, at the lawyers, at everyone who treated his death like a piece of paper to be filed away." She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "I was even angry at God. How could he let that happen? How could he leave Lucy without a father? How could he leave me all alone?" Hannah looked at Adam. "But I was never angry at you," she said softly, "because I didn't know who you were. You were just the owner. A distant name. A person I would never meet." She took a deep breath. "And now you're here, sitting on my porch, having taken care of my daughter, having saved her, and telling me that your company killed my husband." Adam closed his eyes, bracing for the explosion, the deserved anger, the condemnation, but it didn't come. "You are not the man who made the mistake, Adam," Hannah said firmly. "You are the man who wanted to fix it." Adam opened his eyes, surprised. "A lot of people make mistakes in life," she continued, "but very few have the courage to face their own mistake, to admit it, to try to make it right. You're doing that. You're choosing to be different." She placed her hand on his arm. "And that matters. It matters a lot." Adam felt something break inside him, a dam that had been holding everything back for days. He bowed his head and cried. He cried for the Robert he never knew, for Hannah who suffered alone, for Lucy who grew up without a father, for all the names in those boxes of reports, for all the years he had wasted being blind. Hannah let him cry. She stayed there, her hand on his arm, in supportive silence. When he finally composed himself, wiping his face on his shirt sleeve, Hannah gave a sad smile. "Thank you for telling me," she said. "For being honest. For caring." Adam nodded, not trusting his own voice yet. In the days that followed, Adam acted. He set up a trust fund in Lucy's name. It wasn't a small amount. It wasn't symbolic. It was substantial. Enough to guarantee the girl's complete education, from grade school through university. Enough to provide financial security for Hannah as well. He hired the best lawyers, not the companies, different ones, and made everything legally protected. The money was Lucy's. No one could touch it. It would be released in stages as she grew up. He also created a clause. If anything happened to him, the fund would continue. No matter what, Lucy would be protected. When everything was ready, he returned to Hannah's house. This time Lucy was there, playing in the living room with Mr. Cuddles, building a fort out of cushions. "Uncle Adam," she yelled, running to hug him. He picked her up, feeling how much heavier, how much healthier she was. "Hi, little one. How are you?" "Great. Look, I made a castle." "I see. It's very nice." Hannah appeared from the kitchen. She looked at Adam and sensed he had something to say. "Lucy, sweetie, go play outside for a little bit. The grown-ups need to talk." "Okay," Lucy said, grabbing Mr. Cuddles and running off. When they were alone, Adam explained about the fund. Hannah brought her hands to her mouth, shocked. "Adam, it's too much." "I can't accept it." "It's not for you to accept or not," he said, gently but firmly. "It's what's right. It's what should have been done 5 years ago. It's my company's responsibility, my responsibility. But you've already done so much." "I haven't done anything that comes close to making up for what was taken from you," Adam interrupted. "This doesn't bring your husband back. It doesn't erase the suffering, but it ensures that Lucy has the future she deserves." Hannah was crying again. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." When he told the little girl, she had a typical child's reaction. Lucy was in the yard. Adam went to her, knelt down to her level. "Lucy, I need to tell you something important." She dropped her toys, all attention. "What?" "I've created something special for you. It's like a magic savings account." "Magic?" "That's right. There's money saved in there that will be for when you grow up. For you to study, learn new things, and follow your dreams." Lucy looked thoughtful. "Why?" "Because you deserve it. Because I want to see you grow up happy and have every opportunity in the world." Lucy looked at him with those clear, serious blue eyes. Then, without warning, she hugged him tightly. "So you're like my guardian angel?" she asked against his shoulder. Adam felt his throat tighten. He laughed, but it was an emotional, wet laugh. "Thank you, little one. Just a friend who wants to see you grow up happy." "A real friend? A real friend." Lucy squeezed the hug tighter. "I like you, Uncle Adam. I like you too, Lucy. Very much." The months passed. Life returned to normal, or a new normal, better than the last. Lucy recovered completely. She went back to school, made friends. She played chuan ran and laughed like any healthy child. Hannah went back to work. She started a small sewing business from home, now with the financial security to invest in better equipment. And Adam kept visiting. Not every day like at the hospital, but frequently, weekends, holidays, special occasions, and occasions with no reason at all. He became part of the family. Months later, Lucy ran around the yard like any other child. It was a Sunday afternoon. The sky was a cloudless blue. There was a simple barbecue, burgers on the grill, salad, juice. Lucy chased a colorful ball, her blonde hair flying behind her. She laughed loudly, without a care in the world, completely healthy, completely happy. Adam watched her, sitting next to Hannah at a small garden table, with a peace he had never felt before. It was different from anything else. It wasn't the satisfaction of closing a deal. It wasn't the pleasure of buying something expensive. It wasn't the pride of gaining power. It was something deeper, more real, more complete. It was the peace of being exactly where he was supposed to be. "She's beautiful," Hannah said, looking at her daughter. "She is," Adam agreed. "It's like she was never sick. Thanks to you." "Thanks to the doctors. I just helped," Hannah smiled. "You do more than help, Adam. You're a part of our lives now." He looked at her. There was something different in Hannah's eyes too, something beyond gratitude. "I like being a part of it," he said honestly. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Lucy play. Then Adam remembered something. He took something out of his pocket, the restored ring. It was the ring Hannah had almost sold that day in the jewelry store, her grandmother's ring. The one that had started it all. "I asked the jeweler to take care of it," Adam said, holding it out to her. "He cleaned it, polished it, fixed a scratch it had. Some memories deserve to stay with us." Hannah took the ring with trembling hands. She looked at it shining in the sun. Then she looked at Adam, her eyes welling up again. "I had forgotten about it," she admitted, "with everything that happened." "Now you can keep it again," Adam said, "the way it was meant to be." Hannah held the ring, emotional. "And some people deserve to stay too," she said, looking directly at him. Before Adam could reply, Lucy came running up. "Uncle Adam." "Come play with me." "I'll be right there, little one." "Now," she insisted, pulling his hand. Adam laughed and stood up, but Lucy had another idea. Lucy ran to them, climbed into Adam's lap without asking, and snuggled in. She was sweaty from running. She smelled of grass and sun. She rested her little blonde head on his shoulder. Then she did something curious. She placed her ear against his chest. She was quiet, listening. "Uncle Adam, your heart makes the same noise as your watch," she said, surprised and delighted. Adam looked at her, then at Hannah, then at the blue sky above. He smiled, hugging Lucy tenderly. "That's because, for the first time, they're beating together." And it was true. The Swiss watch on his wrist marked the time. Tick-tock, tick-tock. But now his heart beat to the same rhythm. It beat for something real, for someone real. It beat for Lucy, for Hannah, for this family he had found without looking. It beat because, For the first time in decades, Adam Porter was truly alive. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.